Hi, my name is Michelle Knoll, and I'm here to discuss the health risks associated with consuming processed food. By definition, processed food is any type of food that's been altered from its natural state. Most often, you can find them packaged in boxes, bags, or cans, things of that nature. And processed food, they fall on a spectrum between the more minimally processed, which can include things like your bagged spinach or pre-cut vegetables or like baby carrots that you can find in a bag in your produce section. And then there's also foods that are processed at their peak to lock in the nutritional quality and freshness of the food. And this includes things such as a can of tomatoes. And then there's other foods that have ingredients added for flavor and texture, which can include like your jarred pasta sauces, salad dressings, things along those lines. And then you have your worst offenders, which are the ready-to-eat foods, such as your canned meat or your box of Swiss rolls, cakes, crackers, things like that. The reason people eat processed food, I think the number one reason would be for the convenience. In this day and age, everyone's busy, and it's easier to just grab something that's ready to eat, pop it in the microwave, or throw it in the oven and heat it up. And also, I think cost is a factor. Processed food has a tendency to be a lot cheaper than if you were to purchase all of the ingredients to make the same food. And I think that's an appealing factor. Also, I think there's a comfort food factor involved with consuming processed food. As far as, like with my offensive box of Swiss rolls. There are some dangers that are involved with consuming processed food. They have a tendency to contain a lot of trans fats, and on the label you'll see these listed as your hydrogenated or fractionated oils. Now, trans fats, they're associated with an increased risk of heart disease, high cholesterol. They're linked with certain cancers and obesity as well. There's also a lot more sodium in processed food. Now, sodium, it increases your blood volume because with the sodium in your body wants to retain as much fluids to kind of flush the sodium out to maintain the sodium balance that your body requires. And this increases the amount of blood volume and in turn the amount of pressure on your blood vessel walls, which leads to hypertension. This makes your heart work harder and can eventually lead to heart disease. 3/4 of the sodium that is consumed in the American diet comes from processed foods, which is surprising to a lot of people. As a nurse, patient education is a big part of my job, and I have to educate people with hypertension on their sodium intake, and I hear many of them say, well, I don't put a lot of salt on my food. And that's actually, the salt that comes from the salt shaker is a small portion of the salt that we consume. Most people don't take into consideration the fact that in these prepackaged foods, there's already so much sodium that's packed into them. Sugar, it's also higher in sugar, and the sugar often takes the form of high fructose corn syrup because it's a more inexpensive sweetener and can add to the textures, make the textures of the food a little more desirable. Now, with the foods being higher in sugar, this can lead to insulin resistance in your body, and which can eventually lead you to becoming type 2 diabetic. And also because of the empty calories that are involved with the sugar that's put into the food, there's less nutritional content, and this leads to obesity. Also, it can make your liver produce more triglycerides, and this in turn will lead to increased cholesterol levels, causing you to have high cholesterol. In addition, there are also a lot of artificial chemicals in processed food. Now, the purpose of these is like preservatives. that helps with the shelf stability so that these foods can sit on the grocery store shelves for a longer period of time without going bad. And these preservatives are linked to certain cancers and allergic reactions in some people, especially asthmatics. There's also a lot of dyes and colors that are added to these foods to give it more of a visual appeal to the consumer. And these are also linked to some cancers, hyperactivity, particularly in children, and can also have an effect on with as far as allergic reactions. There are artificial flavors that are added to the foods to improve the flavor, and it's cheaper to add these synthetic chemicals than it would be to have more of a real food added to the processed food to make it taste better, which is it's linked to brain dysfunction. And there are some studies that suggest that artificial flavors can possibly increase your risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. With all of that being said, not all processed food is bad. There's some processing that's necessary for safety, such as pasteurization with milk. And, processing is necessary to produce oils that can be made from seeds. So not every single processed food is bad for you. I think the important thing to keep in mind is to read labels and to educate yourself on the chemicals and other ingredients that are going into your food. Clean eating is best for your body and health. Trying to avoid the more highly processed food is the best way to maintain optimal health. Thank you.